There's been plenty of amazing duos throughout the history of the NBA. When it's not a big three winning the championship or just an amazing all-around team, there's usually a 1-2 punch you can point to that was leading the squad. And when you look back, there's two duos not too far apart from each other in time that stand out for this: Kobe and Shaq and Jordan and Pippen. There's been so many comparisons between Kobe and Jordan, as many believe Kobe is the closest thing to MJ there's been, but I was surprised to find out that there hasn't been a ton of discussion about which duo was actually better or which one you would take. This is a tough topic to tackle, so I'll gladly take it on so we can try to get to the bottom of it. And of course, since all these guys are retired, you can't really see them play anymore, but you can see plenty of other amazing players with the SeatGeek app. The app provides you with the easiest way to buy tickets for almost any kind of event, which would be mostly sports related for you guys. The app pulls tickets from all over the web and has them in one place to make purchasing one for your event really easy, and it also assures you'll be getting the best value for your ticket. While looking for the tickets, each one is ranked with a score from 1 to 100 that lets you know if you're getting a good deal or not for your purchase. On top of that, the app also provides you with a detailed view of what you would see from your seat before you even get there, which is extremely helpful. If you're interested in getting the app, the links will be in both the comment section and highlighted in the description. If you're still on the fence, consider using my promo code DOM2K to get $20 off your first purchase. This is the app I used when I went to the Warriors and Magic game last season, and it made the whole process really simple, so I definitely recommend it for you. So I'm gonna start in order and cover Jordan and Pippen first. To be honest, it's just so difficult to say you'd pick any duo in history over these guys due to the sheer amounts of success that they had. They played 10 official seasons together, which was really more like 9 because of Jordan's baseball sabbatical, but in those 10 seasons, they produced 6 championships that many argue would have been 8 if Jordan hadn't retired. I'm not really going to get pulled into arguing whether that's true or not, but I will argue that Jordan and Pippen is about as perfect as you can get when talking about two ball-handling star players together. If you've listened to my videos long enough, you'll notice a pattern where I just have something against putting ball handlers together. I've always wanted to see Westbrook with the big man. I've had questions about how Paul and Harden are going to work out, but Jordan and Pippen were just ideal in making this work. In Michael Jordan, you had everything you could ever want in an elite shooting guard. 6'6", almost 200 pounds, elite at getting to the rim, killer mid-range game, fine-tuned offensive skills to get to his spots, and he even developed the back-to-the-basket game as his career progressed. But what made Jordan so special was that he played Defensive Player of the Year worthy defense, which is something you rarely see from someone who does as much on the offensive end as he did. So not only was this guy dropping buckets on you regardless of who you were, but you had to deal with him hounding you on the other end non-stop. It's pretty much like Kawhi Leonard on steroids, like a lot of steroids. But early on in Jordan's career, mostly pre-Phil Jackson, he was basically the Bulls' entire offense. He handled the ball so much and did a bulk of the scoring, so if I was around back then and you told me another ball handling player was coming to join him, I probably would have cringed. Well, until you told me that guy was Scottie Pippen. Sometimes the stars just align right, and that really happened for Jordan, as his drafted partner in crime would be a very athletic 6'8", 210-pound small forward with long arms suited perfectly for tenacious defense. His size and playstyle made him perfect to be a point forward, and that versatility was his best asset next to Jordan. His tenacious defense along with his size meant he could defend pretty much any wing player in the league, no matter how big or small they were, and he could also guard bigs in some cases. A great testament to his versatile defense is evidenced by the 1991 finals. He took on the responsibility of guarding Magic Johnson, who was regularly a mismatch for other point guards because he was 6'9". That was the Bulls' first championship, and although Johnson's stats were still great, his field goal percentage did come down to 43% as opposed to the 47% he shot during that season. Even without a Defensive Player of the Year award to show for it, Pippen has a great case to be considered the best wing defender of that era, as he made 12 all-defensive teams, with 8 of them being first-team selections. Having him next to Jordan, who was also an elite defender, was one of the team's greatest assets that led to them going 6 for 6 in the finals. Although it didn't happen in the NBA, my favorite story between the two of them was about the time they absolutely destroyed Tony Kukoc in the 1992 Olympics. There was this whole saga where the Bulls kept stalling Pippen on his contract because they were setting money aside for Kukoc to come over and play. And in short, this almost got Kukoc killed, as Jordan and Pippen relentlessly harassed him every time he got the ball. Yeah, Kukoc wasn't in the NBA yet, I get that, but the other Dream Teamers who saw this were always describing it like they witnessed some helpless victim getting jumped, so it's just a nice testament to what this duo was capable of on that end. But what about the other qualities Pippen added? It's often difficult to get him his credit because he was playing next to Jordan, who was and still is a transcendent figure, and it almost becomes impossible to remember things like how Pippen stepped up to lead the Bulls in assists and rebounding while ranking second in scoring and steals for the 1991 season. That versatility allowed the Bulls to be so successful because he could step up and lead different categories while Michael Jordan could focus mostly on the scoring. And it wasn't like Scottie couldn't score, it's just that it wasn't his main job. But when Jordan retired for the first time, Scottie proved he could score while still handling his regular duties, averaging 22 points, nearly 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. Of course, the Bulls didn't win anything without Jordan, but rarely does one piece of a duo ever win anything alone, right? So Pippen was your all-around point forward that could step up and do virtually anything that the team needed, and he was fine with doing that next to Jordan, who took the lead role in the offense. But this is why they're the most successful duo in NBA history. They simply didn't run into the problems like you see with Kyrie and LeBron today, or even Kobe and Shaq in the 2000s, where roles became a fatal issue. This is the perfect segue into what many identify as the most dominant duo to play the game of basketball, Shaq and Kobe. When you look at what these two players were capable of individually, it's not hard to understand why they were such a nightmare to deal with once Kobe Bryant became a star. So before Kobe really became a star that demanded the ball, Shaq was averaging 27 points, 12 rebounds, 2.6 blocks, and shooting a staggering 57%. Surprisingly, the numbers don't say enough about how unstoppable Shaq was. Standing at 7'1" and mostly hanging around 300 pounds, Shaq is very likely the most dominant player in NBA history, and the only reason he isn't the greatest player of all time is because he didn't put forth the effort to get there, and that's mostly because he was allowed to depend on his size. Still, that was okay for his career because that sheer size was overwhelming enough that he really didn't have an answer other than Hakeem Olajuwon, and when your only other answer is the dream, that says a lot about the player you are. When the year 2000 came, Phil Jackson got on board to get the most out of Shaq, and it paid off with an MVP award and probably the most dominant basketball we'll see for another few decades. The scoring, the defense, the rebounding, 2000 Shaq honestly should have been unanimous MVP, and that makes his duo insane when you consider his teammate was Kobe Bryant. From an early age, Kobe Bryant was being pegged as the next Michael Jordan, and in hindsight, we can at least say that the comparisons were fair. He copied his moves down to a T, he was ultra athletic, he was basically the same exact size as Jordan, and he played both sides of the ball well. So when Kobe started coming into his own, it really wasn't a surprise that this duo put together a three-peat and made it to 4 NBA finals, and what immediately stands out is their imposing stats for certain playoff series. Where Jordan was pretty much always the main focus on offense, you get these eye-popping numbers from both Kobe Bryant and Shaq, where Kobe's scoring 40 points multiple times in the playoffs, Shaq is averaging an ungodly 30 and 15 for an entire playoffs, Kobe is dunking on the likes of Tim Duncan and David Robinson at the same time, Shaq is playing on rookie against the Pacers in the finals. There's really nothing this duo wasn't capable of. But when you evaluate these two as duos, their compatibility has to count for something. Whereas Pippen and Jordan won 6 titles and were maybe capable of 8, Kobe and Shaq only won 3 when they were also capable of 8, and it's just that their egos got in the way. Their biggest downfall was that their personalities were simply too big to fit in one locker room, so no matter how much we wish they could have played together until 2009, there was simply no chance of that ever happening. Kobe got to the point where he needed to prove he could lead his own team, and Shaq was more than happy to say that Kobe should leave if he couldn't accept that it wasn't his team. We won't pretend that Jordan didn't have an ego or that sometimes it was hard being on a team with him because of the shadow that he tended to cast, but Pippen was the perfect Robin to Jordan's Batman, and he was able to accept that long enough for them to be successful. But when we look at the functionality of these duos, I've already discussed that Pippen was the perfect complement to Jordan, and this created an A and B type situation. One amazing stat that backs this up is that in all the playoff games Chicago played from 1988 to 1998, Scottie Pippen only scored 30 or more points on 5 occasions. MJ, on the other hand, he had 109 30-point games in that span, and that's pretty mind-boggling. Compare that to Kobe and Shaq, and this is much more of a 1A and 1B type situation than people realize. It's popular to say that Kobe was carried by Shaq, but I've already debunked that myth, and besides, look at their scoring comparison. For the time that Kobe and Shaq were a dominant duo from 2000 to 2004, Shaq and Kobe combined for 67 games in which either of them scored above 30 points, and the split only works out to 35 and 32 in Shaq's favor. That's only a 3-game difference. So I find that interesting because even with that split, you always hear that Shaq carried Kobe, but you never hear that Jordan carried Pippen, yet that scoring breakdown looks extremely one-sided. However, I'm not here to argue that anybody got carried because I don't believe that's true for either side. I simply brought that up to show the sheer dominance of Shaq and Kobe duo and to help you understand why this stretch was so amazing. And now, just one more stat that I would probably get killed for not mentioning. In all the playoff games Jordan and Pippen played, their final record came out to 118 and 51, while Kobe and Shaq finished with a 77 and 40 record. Of course, the Bulls had a few more years to accumulate more wins than Shaq and Kobe could have had, but that's their own fault. So now, the golden questions. Which duo was better and which would you pick? As you might expect, the answer can't just be black and white. Jordan and Pippen were definitely the more successful duo because they handled their roles better. Meanwhile, from a talent perspective, it would be hard not to give it to Kobe and Shaq just based off the fact that they both dominated like Batmans while on the court together. If I could pick either duo for 10 seasons in a vacuum without other factors, I would probably have to pick Kobe and Shaq because I think we can all agree that their dominance could have propelled them to a ridiculous amount of championships. But in the real world, knowing everything that we know, it'd be hard not to pick Jordan and Pippen because we know they're going to dominate and we also know they're not going to be bumping heads. When you consider these things, you really have to take into account how each duo would coexist. And while a prime Shaq and Kobe would definitely be more dominant in a 10-year span, they also might have killed each other before they even got to the 5th. Meanwhile, a duo of Jordan and Pippen would just continuously dominate as they did for their 2 3-peats. There's also the big question mark with Shaq and if he actually stays in shape. Shaq was gigantic by the time he arrived in Phoenix, and that's the main reason we don't know for sure how many rings him and Kobe could have won. On the other hand, work ethic wasn't a problem for Pippen and Jordan, so there's no reason to believe anything silly would have happened to keep them from being successful. So if my final answer wasn't clear enough, I think that the better duo talent-wise was Kobe and Shaq because those were 2 Batmans playing together for as long as they could. But as far as who I would pick, if real-world situations apply, then there's no way 2 Batmans are going to survive that long if one doesn't at least pretend that he's Robin. Because Jordan and Pippen mastered that, I would have to pick them because I know they're going to be more successful in the end. And that's what I got for you guys today. I know this is going to be hotly debated because anytime you mention Kobe and Jordan in the video, everybody comes out in full force, so I definitely want to see what you guys have to say, and make sure you tell me who you would pick, Kobe and Shaq or Jordan and Pippen. Make sure to leave your comments below, hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on my videos. I'm Dom2K, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.